Are you sure you're making profit from that your bread business? Or you could even be running at a loss without even realizing it. In this video, I will show you how to cost right so you'll never underprice or overprice your bread again. Hi, my name is Esther and welcome to Esther's Brief, where we discuss everything about starting and growing a bread business. If you love videos like this, hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Now let's start. I'll be breaking down these videos into several sections. Section 1 is understanding costing from my own point of view. Now, what is bread costing? Bread costing is an estimate of all the expenses you will incur during production, from your price of raw materials, packaging, your gas, your electricity, your rent, your labor, and then adding a percentage to these incurred costs, which will now become your profit in order to determine what your final cost of bread will be. Bread costing is very essential to determine the right selling price and to ensure that you make a profit, because that's the essence of this business. Now, to do this, you need to consider 3 main cost categories. Now, the first cost category will be your direct cost, which is the cost of your ingredients and your packaging. And then the second one will be your indirect cost, which is the cost of gas, electricity, rent, and labor. Now, there's also a profit margin, which you add to this cost. Now, let's break this down step by step. Your direct cost, which is the ingredients and packaging cost. First, let's calculate the cost of making 1 loaf of bread by listing the raw materials that you will need, right? For example, to make 50 loaves of bread, right, that you'll be cutting at 500 grams, you're going to need flour. Let's say you buy flour 10 kg. Let's say it's 12,000 naira. Your sugar, you will need your butter, and you will need your yeast, right? I'm going to be putting all these costs on the screen. You also need your salt, your water, the amount for your water, putting all the cost of all the raw materials you need, including your nylon and your packaging, the cost of your nylon. Now, there's a formula which I'll be putting on the screen. Now, this formula is your total ingredient cost divided by the number of loaves you are able to make. It will give you the cost of each loaf. For example, let's say your bread costs 21,000 naira and you are able to make 50 loaves of bread. Now, you're going to divide 21,800 divided by 50 loaves of bread, right? Which will give you, for example, 436 naira per loaf. Let's say all your ingredients, all your raw materials, your sugar, your yeast, your butter, everything, all the ingredients, you're going to write out how much it costs you to buy each and every ingredient. That's why record keeping is very, very important. Now, after you have listed the prices of buying all these ingredients, and all these ingredients, you were able to make 50 loaves of bread from all these ingredients. Is an example. I'm not saying that that's the exact loaf that it will give you, right? Now, you're going to divide that cost of raw material divided by the 50 loaves you were able to make out of it. When you divide it, it's going to give you the price for each loaf. But that's not all. Don't forget that your cost of production is not only your total cost is not only the direct cost. There are also other costs that you incur in this production process, which is the indirect cost. Now, the indirect cost, which is the cost for your gas, these are things that you cannot actually measure, right? Your cost of gas, electricity, your rent, your labor, you can't actually measure this cost. So what do you do in this aspect? Don't forget that if you're buying your gas, let's assume your gas lasts you for 1 month and your electricity lasts you for 1 month, right? Now, how much is it? How much gas did you buy that lasted you for that period? If, for example, you bought a cylinder of gas to power your oven for 12,000 naira, it costs you 12,000. I know it's way more than that, but I'm just using 12,000 as an example. And in that 12,000 naira worth of gas, you were able to make 50 loaves of bread from your 1,000. Let's do the mathematics. And then you say 12,000 divided by 50. Whatever it gives you is the cost of gas per loaf of bread, which you're now going to add to your direct cost. Remember the direct cost where we calculated all the cost of all your raw ingredients, right? And then we divided it by the number of loaves you were able to make using those ingredients. Now that figure, you're going to add your cost of gas to it. Secondly, you also say, let's say your rent, where you're renting to make this production, you pay monthly, for example. Let's use monthly. I think it's easier to understand that way. You pay monthly, and then your monthly cost is, let's say, 50,000 for the hall you're renting, or for wherever it is that you're making this production. You pay 50,000 naira. 50,000 naira divided for a month. Now, what's the total loaves of bread you're able to make for a month? That's why record keeping is very important. I keep saying this. Have where you keep your record to know how many loaves of bread you're able to make in 1 month. For example, let's say you made 5,000 loaves of bread in a month, and then your cost of renting that place for 1 month is 50,000. You're now going to divide 50,000 divided by 5,000 loaves of bread. Whatever it gives you is the cost of your rent per loaf of bread. Now you're also going to add that to your direct costs. Remember, I said put down your direct cost somewhere, write it down somewhere, how much it costs you to make each loaf of bread. Now you're going to be adding all these indirect costs to it, right? Now you're going to add it to that indirect cost. When you add that, you keep that aside. Now let's also say which other indirect costs will you incur? Your cost of labor. Now your cost of labor, let's assume that you pay 150,000 naira for all your staff. That's what you pay them monthly. And you were able to make 5,000 loaves of bread monthly. Now that 5,000, then you're going to divide that 150,000 divided by your 5,000 loaves of bread. That is your cost of labor for each bread. You're going to add that. So this is how you add up the direct and indirect cost. Should I break it down again? Should I repeat it again? Okay, I said for your direct cost is the cost of all your raw ingredients plus your packaging, right? Divide that with the number of loaves of bread you were able to make. That will give you a figure. Now, that figure, keep it aside. Your indirect costs, you begin to add them one after the other. Take gas, for example. You bought gas at 12,000 naira and you were able to make for 1 month, and you were able to make 5,000 loaves of bread in a month. Divide 12,000 divided by 5,000. Whatever it gives you is the cost of 1 loaf of bread. You're going to add that to your direct cost. Now, when you're done with the direct cost and the indirect cost, like I said, are the costs that you cannot measure, are the expenses you cannot measure, like your gas, your rent, your electricity and all that. You can't measure them. So those are your indirect costs. After you have added up your direct cost and your indirect cost, you have a figure. Now, you're also going to add a markup, your profit markup. That profit markup is a percentage that you will add to your cost of production. That will determine your profit. Let's say you're going to add 20% of your cost, right? To give you an exact figure. Now, 20%, let's say after you have added your direct and your indirect costs, you came up with, let's say 600 naira. I'm going to be using 600 naira because I'm in a country where we use naira. This is Nigeria, and our primary currency is the naira. So I might be making use of the naira. So wherever you are in the world watching this, you can convert it to your own currency so you understand it better. So, but for where I am right now, I'll be making use of the naira. So now let's say your direct and your indirect cost resulted to 600 naira per loaf of bread. That's 600 naira. You're now going to add 20% of 600 naira. 20% of 600 naira, add 20% to your 600 in order to know what your final cost of production will be, your final cost per loaf of bread would be. Now, let's assume that 20% of 600, my calculator is not here, I would have loved to do that. So when we add that, let's assume we get like, say 800 or 700 and something naira. Now, that is your cost of production per loaf. So by the time you're able to do this, you're also going to look around you your competitors and determine and find out how much they are selling their own product. Don't ever forget to scan your environment. How much are your competitors selling? How much are they selling? And compare it to what you arrived at as your cost of production. That way you'll be able to tell if you should either mark up or step down your price a little bit. And that brings us to market ranges and market strategy. If your competitor sells at 800 while you are selling at say 7 something, you might want to adjust your price or find ways to reduce your cost. If your quality is better, you can charge a premium. Don't even hesitate to always do that. Now, section 5, common mistakes and tips. Not calculating your rent and your utilities properly or forgetting your labor costs can cost you serious loss. Underpricing to compete can also cause you loss. Not adjusting prices when ingredient costs shoot up can lead you to loss. The bread business is a very profitable one when you do it right, but small mistakes in costing can lead to big losses. So please do your costing right? Now, if you found this video very helpful, please drop in the comment section profitable bread. If you're ready to apply this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my next video on how to reduce cost in bread production. See you then. Thank you for watching.